Dun, 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 dun. Hello!
Hi, everyone.
Hi, friends. Hello. Welcome to another book review by the Interstellar Book Club, the Sci-Fi Book Club. We're amazing. This is us. Hi.
That's a big heart.
Yes. Okay, so before we get started today, we're going to be talking about Walking Practice by Dolki. First of all, this cover is everything.
Iconic. Incredible.
It really is. Hi, I'm Steph. Welcome if this is your first time. We do this all the time. We've been here for a long time. Thanks for joining us. That's Natalie. That way.
Hi, I'm Natalie. Recently back to BookTube. So I post about books, anime, manga. Excited to be here.
Yes. And yeah, so we are missing two other hosts, and I was legally bound to make a statement. Hold on. What was the statement I had to make again? From one of our other hosts who couldn't make it today. I had made a promise to announce that to let you all know that he broke his whole ass. That's why we're here.
Max broke his whole ass, and that is why he cannot join us here today.
Yes.
Otherwise, he would have.
Yes. But the rest of our hosts will join us next time. So, hi, Roro.
Well, that's already a lie.
Oh, that's
I
true.
will not be joining.
That's true. Okay. You know what? Hosts join whenever. We do this every month, but hosts join. We just
When they
kind of
join.
we flow when we join. Yes.
Hi, Rara.
Did you walking practice? Please tell me you
Please
did.
tell us you read it.
Oh,
it's so good.
it was
If you
so
didn't,
good.
you definitely have to.
Yes. Okay. And also, I am going to make posts about this on all the social media, but just to let everyone know, in case you're not sticking around for the review, in case you're just popping in, what we're reading next month, we are reading Death of the Author. Well, I'm reading Death of the Author by Nadia Corver.
The book club as a concept is reading.
Yes. And whoever joins will be reading Death of the Author by Nadia Corver, which is a very recent release, very hyped release. So feel free to join us in the Discord and other things if you want to talk about it, or check out all the social media links below for wherever you want to talk about it. So yeah, that's exciting. That's our February read. Okay, but getting into January. So excited!
How about we start with a summary?
Yes. Do you want to try?
So, Walking Practice is basically about this alien who has been living on Earth for about 10 years, if I remember correctly. And they found out that the only diet that can sustain them is eating human flesh. And so we just follow their struggles as they go try to get fresh meat, you know? And that's pretty much it. Like that's the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything else is basically how the main character is dealing with loneliness and the fact that they have not been able to find another alien like them on Earth. So they have to basically assume there's no one else like them and they just have to deal.
Yes. Yes, that's literally it. It is short. It is sweet.
And it's hilarious.
Amazing. Amazing. You have to listen to the audiobook. If you have not listened to the audiobook,
we highly recommend.
Yes.
Highly.
Yes. And also, I didn't realize this, but the physical copy has pictures.
Oh, the physical copy has pictures?
It has pictures. Look at how amazing. I think this is what Moo is supposed to look like. It's got hair on top.
Huh.
Which is totally not what I thought Moo looked like in my brain.
I mean, Moo describes themselves, but it's also so hard to imagine.
Yeah. It's intentionally
like the most
hard.
vivid thing for me is like the nail. They're like, I have one nail.
There's more pictures. I don't know. I guess it's just like all the different transformations of Moo.
Yeah, it's like one nail, 3 legs, right? I'm pretty sure it's like 3 legs.
1 nail, 3 legs.
Huh.
1 more face. Yep, there's a mouth.
Like bajillion teeth.
Yes.
That.
Everything. So good. The writing structure is so cool in this one. Okay, so having listened to it on audio is a very different experience.
Yeah.
Because the narrator took so much liberty in the way that they chose to emphasize things, whisper certain things,
Yeah.
even just like mid-sentence different words getting like changing pitch and whatever.
Yeah.
So that I don't think was as evident to me in listening to it, but it was like I kind of wish more narrators had this much freedom to do stuff.
Yeah, no, like it was part of what was really, really cool about listening to it. And I listened to it twice, people. Okay, twice. I was like, it was so good. I'm like, no, incredible, amazing. But I love that. I love the everything about the audiobook. The narrator did an amazing job.
Yes, but peeking into it physically to see what Roro is referencing, like there is different kinds of type depending on, I guess, if they're talking to someone on one of the dating apps where they're hunting people,
Hmm.
or if it's like text messages, it's in bold, and then the titles of each chapter is basically like the distance that they have to walk or
Well,
travel
I do
to get to the
remember
event.
that being like a kind of separation between
Yeah,
the sections. It's like
yeah,
distance.
yeah,
Because it
like
kept being like blah 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 kilometers.
yeah, like
Mm.
14 kilometers, 21 kilometers, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so that was really cool. But yeah, this story was so unique. I don't even think we can do like non-spoilers. I'm done with doing non-spoilers for these videos. Like, because if people are clicking on it, they're gonna want to hear it anyway. So like let's just jump into it.
I mean, I feel like we should at least say what we rated the book, though. I feel like
Yes.
it's obvious. I
Yes.
mean,
Okay.
5 stars for me all the way, no doubt about it. It was my first 5-star of the year, and I adored it.
Yes, it was so good. 5 stars. It was my second 5-star of the year. And yes, I'm just I can easily see this going into a favorite books of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
100%. 100%. And I need to say, I need more Dolki Min books.
Hmm.
Please.
Hmm.
Please. I need them to write them and I need them to be translated.
Yeah,
I'm so ready
feed
for
us, please. Okay, so it was yeah, it was so good. Okay, so what did you rate it, Roro? Please tell us. Tell us what you rated it.
yeah.
I'm assuming it's good because you're saying so good. Okay, so this little book does so much in such a small amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know where, like, it covers gender identity, it covers gender conformity, it covers I guess disability.
Yeah.
What else?
I mean, again, I think loneliness is a big
Yeah.
thing, like this need for companionship, and what that does to your psyche.
Mhm.
Um, alienation, like
Mhm.
alienation, like obviously it's an alien, but experiencing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Um like
beauty standards, because that's a
yes.
big thing as well in the
Yeah.
novel.
Big thing on beauty standards. Beauty, I think what's interesting here is for me is like beauty standards as far as them what they need to do in order to like mask themselves for hunting purposes, but also like their personal level of self-esteem.
But I would also say it factors into who they're even willing to engage with, because
Yeah.
that's also part of the whole thing. It's like, arguably, Mumu shouldn't give a shit because they're gonna eat the human at the end of the day, but they do actually have preferences and are like,
Mhm.
ugly people are horrible. No, I don't want to do anything with them, basically. So it's yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also, I think like there's a couple points in the book where, if I remember correctly, they were kind of checking themselves out in the mirror, like, I am a fine piece of meat. Like, I'm like, slay. I
Yeah.
love that. But, and I think it was also interesting that it's like when they were transformed into a human body, which they would change genders depending to match like who it is that they're hunting and like what the person might be attracted to. Um, but also when they were in their alien body, they were still talking about themselves in a positive way. So like no
Yeah.
matter what form they were in, they were like, look at me, I'm glamorous, I'm gorgeous. I was like, yes, you are. I love you so much.
I remember though vividly one of the moments being like, I have to make myself so much uglier. Like I am supreme in my natural form.
Yeah.
And humans, but whatever. I feel like a lot of it came from this sense of like I did a good job. Like them feeling themselves as a human was more like, look at how impressive I am. I
Mhm.
truly made a masterpiece,
Mhm.
basically. When ultimately they're like, no, I'm at my peak in my alien form.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I think is really important about that too is like this mis misconsumption,
Misconception.
misconception, thank you. Misconception that people have that dressing up is for someone else. And it's like, no, at the end of the day, what you choose to wear, how you choose to express yourself, what makeup you put on, what hairstyle you have, all of that is for you.
Yeah.
So it should be satisfying you. So I loved to see that they I keep saying she because in the beginning of the book they introduce themselves as a she, and then it got stuck in my head, and I'm like, no, it's a they, because they make a specific point to talk about that throughout the book, and we'll get to talk them and how they like did that specifically for the audience in a little bit. But just like the fact that all of it was for them. It wasn't for anybody else. And it was like, yes, technically they're also doing it for hunting reasons and like to get that person to agree to the one night stand for them. But at the end of the day, they were like, ah, yes, like, yes. I loved it.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So let's I guess jump into that point then. So it
Yeah.
was really interesting that in the beginning of the book they introduced themselves as a she, because in the first opening sequence when we see Mumu, they are, which is the name of the alien, they are walking to go meet with a person who they met online, because they meet everyone through dating apps. And when they get there, they have to walk up 16 flights of stairs, which is
Which,
just
first of all, I would never. I
right?
would never. There's no dick or vagina good enough for
Yes.
me to go up 16 flights of stairs. The elevator's out. I'm out.
Right.
I'm like, you have nothing good enough to offer me to do that amount of exercise. No,
No. And
no.
on top of that, how disrespectful the person was. Because when Mumu
Yeah.
was like, the elevator's out, can you like meet me somewhere? And they were like, nah, come up or go home. And Mumu was like, well, I didn't walk all this way for nothing. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna eat you. She's like, I was thinking about making you my 12th partner, but now you're food. So
Yes.
whatever, let's
Yes.
go.
Yeah.
I'm not going for the stairs.
No, no,
No.
absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then Moo makes it all the way up those stairs, and dude basically smells like dick. I'm like, stop.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
no. I'm like, Moo actually, yes, you need to eat him expeditiously.
Yes. Absolutely disrespectful.
But
Abs-
regardless, anyway, our point being that, like, in that intro, for a while they're just talking, and then they're like, wait, you're humans, you're listening to this. You must be stressed that I have not told you my gender. So I'll let you be at ease. And
Mhm.
so they present themselves like as a woman. And that's how they're presenting themselves to the world. But it's like it's what they are in that moment
Mhm.
versus what they always are. Because later on it's in essence revealed, like part of when they're talking about and thinking about other aliens, um they say like, I wonder if he, well, really, they wouldn't use those terms because that we don't think about gender in that way. But for
Mhm.
you guys, basically, again, for y'all, okay, he, and they continue in that path. So like any pronouns basically feel like null because Mumu doesn't think of themselves in those terms because their own alien species
Yeah.
has their own construct, which they actually never share with us. Like we
Yeah.
never know what that is, how. the aliens are like divided or organized in society. It's just they are.
Yes.
That's it.
That's all we need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they actively want to leave Earth. Like they're stuck, but like not by choice, even though they're kind of like they've made it comfortable enough for themselves. They've got a stash of food, they have their routine, and like life is okay and they could sustain there. They made a point also to say, like, if tomorrow I meet one of my people and I'm rescued, goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah. They have no attachment to Earth, like at all.
Yeah. So that was really important. But the horror aspect of this was so good. Like the first time that Mumu described the unfurling of their jaws, and just like right after they finished banging it out on the guy's bed, he didn't even get to finish his sentence of "Did you have a good time?" And she just like, bam, completely bites his head off, goes into serial killer mode, and starts calling her saws and knives my babies, my precious.
That's right.
Oh God. That took me out. I was like, I love her. Like she gave more of a fuck, more delicate handling to her knives than she did to this man. I mean, he didn't deserve it, but still, like for real.
No,
so unhinged.
deranged.
Ugh,
Deranged.
yeah. And that they still have an intolerance to hair.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
that was so interesting.
Mhm.
Adding that little element that, like, for the most part, they can eat basically any part of humans, but the hair does not go down well.
Mm.
It doesn't.
That was so interesting. That was so funny. I loved it. And then she like shaved his body.
I mean, listen, if I want to have a good meal later, I'd shave his body too. Like, I want this to go down right. Okay, so let's make this body slick, no hair.
Good for you, boo. She had a great time. Oh my God, it was so good. But yeah, and then there was a point later on, I think, where something had happened. I don't remember what had happened, but the knives went missing. And Mumu was like, "R.I.P. knives. I'll remember you. I'm gonna get a new set. My babies are gone, but that's okay. You live in my heart." And I was like,
I can't remember if that's. It has to be one of two things, but I think it's when their hunt goes wrong because they take too long to kill one of their long-term partners. And so she starts running, and I don't know if then their shit gets left behind there. I think it's there because I feel like I don't think they bring it with them on the hunt that they end up being what's the word I'm looking for when there's multiple people jump them, I guess.
Oh yes.
I don't think they have it there, but I could be wrong. It could actually have been there. It's one of those two. It's either when that hunt of their longtime partner goes wrong, or they basically get jumped by a group of people are almost, at the pearly gates. And so they don't have time, energy, nothing to deal with any of that, and they just have to crawl back home, basically.
Yeah. I feel like it was the one where they went to kill their longtime partner because they had to jump out the window.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking that too, because they had to jump out the window and do this whole chase scene. So yeah. But they were sad. They were like, my weapons.
They lamented the knives more than they lamented that longtime partner because they were gonna eat them anyway. But And that scene was so iconic where the person was like, I'm pretty sure they were naked because they had just finished having sex.
Yeah.
And then they jumped out the window when Mumu opened up their mouth and running down the street. And Moon was just like, no, wait, come back, please. Like
I'm
the
not
okay,
gonna eat you. I'm not
I
gonna eat
hate
you. I
you and
love
I
you. I
hate
love
you.
you.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I thought that was really interesting. Like this idea of like how many times they said I love you as a means of maintaining control over that person, but like not actually meaning it. Like, did they mean I love you? What do you think?
I I feel like the only time they kind of meant it um was maybe with like the elephant that we can talk about the fat phobia or
Uh-huh.
rhinoceros. I can't remember which one of the two Mumu uses to describe this person. Um who they end up going there and that person tries to cancel their encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they realized they were lying on their profile and they're much bigger than what they said they were. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then they were really, really good in bed.
Mm-hmm.
So Mumu is like, I love this person. Basically. I I feel like the way I interpreted it at least is like they do feel some level of love, but all of it is rooted in that loneliness. Like they're yearning so badly for long-term companionship, which they for the most part accept cannot happen with a
Mm-hmm.
human. They know that's not going to be sustainable, but I feel like there's at least a brief moment where they do feel it, even if it's not like a forever kind
Yeah.
of love, because they are just craving the end of their loneliness. Like they
Yeah.
just they want to feel loved as well.
Yeah.
I
They
would
definitely do want that and they want to give it and they want to
Yeah,
receive it.
yeah,
I feel like it's also very conditional because it's like at any time Mumu could decide, all right, you've sustained, you're welcome. You are now dinner. Welcome to my stomach. Hi. Like um and like I don't know, maybe there's something there or maybe I'm reading too much into it of like the action of eating them and consuming them and making them a part of themselves is like an action of love in some way. I don't know, this like action of consuming. Um
I feel like that I've definitely seen that in other novels, but I don't know that I would believe that for this
for
one.
this, yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like once they make completely the decision to consume, it's like, okay, no, you just meat.
Yeah.
You're just meat and that's it.
Yeah.
But
Which I feel like is what makes it conditional because that person who said I love you back, even though they were now classified as meat, was still in love with them when they became meat.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was crazy. That was so fun. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So definitely fat phobia on Mumu's part for that. Was it the same person that they called the elephant? Like it went from did it go from rhinoceros to elephant, or were these two different people? I think it was the same person.
I I feel like the two people who were called that, I mean, that I feel like whoever was called that was the same person
Yeah.
because there was Stinky Breath, which is
Uh-huh.
the one that they were gonna end the relationship, and so by eating them, and so they were like, no, before the end, I have to tell them their breath stinks.
Oh yes, I remember that.
So I don't think she was referred to as a rhinoceros or elephant, whichever of the terms. Because in that scenario, Moo was the little piggy, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And so any language of that I think was more towards Moo. But I can't recall. But yeah, like I feel like a huge thing in this novel, it's all kind of tied together which is like societal expectations on like both gender presentation,
Mhm.
but in this case also very woven in with weight, because if we think about it, specifically where Mumu is, which we can assume is South Korea because the author is Korean,
Mhm.
um I feel like that's a big thing there.
Yeah.
Not that the US is so amazing and loves fat people. They don't.
No, we're not barely
Um,
ever inclusive.
but it's also a big factor there. And there is, I feel like, more pressure to feel shame
Mhm.
about your weight. And like you should be ashamed and you should feel like you should hide yourself basically
Mhm.
if you're overweight, um, don't fit the perfect mold of
Yeah.
what you're supposed to look like. And I feel like some of it is part of what the author's doing is that Mumu has spent 10 years here. And however much they want to say they're so different from humans and like there's this whole separation, I feel like that's one of the areas where you start seeing that Mumu has internalized
Mhm.
certain things from human thinking. Because if you think about it, Mumu in their alien shape, and they talk about it, is like 5 bajillion times bigger and heavier than
Literally it is.
a human being, but they still talk shit
Mhm.
about humans that don't fit the desired weight. And it's like, bro, look in a mirror. What are
Mhm.
you talking about?
Mhm. And
um
also hygiene as well, I know is a very important thing in South Korean society, like, um, plus size stores like we have here in the States, which are still few and far between, but those do not exist from what I've heard of people that I follow online who live in South Korea, like mentioned. So that being said, like you said, all of this is implicit in Mumu, especially because since Mumu is an alien and came to Earth over 10 years ago, they didn't have any of this. None of this was something that registered or existed to them until they crash landed on Earth. And so they had to have picked all of this up in their time of what they've done to conform to Earth standards in South Korea in order to survive. But it's like if you're surrounded by something and you're not actively being critical of it or like paying close attention, then that stuff rubs off.
yeah,
What we're in proximity to rubs off on us. So it's like all of that, those beauty standards did rub off on her throughout her time there.
yeah. And like I feel like more standard stuff, yeah, kind of infiltrated
Mm-hmm.
their brain, because the big thing that doesn't is like ultimately at the end of the day they don't understand how humans are so strictly divided
Mm-hmm.
into female and male. They're like there's so much variation precisely because they come from a different planet and they can observe these things more objectively, one could
Mm-hmm.
argue. They're like, how are there only two categories basically that people sort themselves into? That's ridiculous. But then also ultimately they do still buy into the idea, and I think a lot of it has to do because they had to in order to survive, that you should fit a specific mold. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to avoid ridicule, which they very much are, they don't like this idea of attention being on them and anyone laughing or even abusing them, because there is a moment where they reference that someone beat them because they weren't holding their shape correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they're trying to avoid all this. And so they've bought into like, no, this is what's nice looking in humans, and specifically for women and specifically for men. Um, and anyone who doesn't abide by that, well, fuck you, figure your shit out because I have to do it, basically. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a lot of how it reads to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's a lot.
Yeah. Yes. Also, I want to go into the disability part a little bit. So the title of the book, Walking Practice, like we literally see Mumu practice walking in order to make sure that they can get to where they need to go. Hi, Josh. Thanks for being here. What did you rate it? I think you might have mentioned the Discord, but I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure it was good. Yeah, so like, because when Moo goes back home, they shed their human exterior and go back to their more natural body shape form, get comfortable, and then it's kind of like riding a bike, where when they use all of their energy to conform themselves to the human body that they need to for their next hunt, they need to actually practice moving in that body, which was really interesting. And I also like, I think it ties directly into how much we get of their public transit accessibility in like train, in the stairs, and things of that nature, where it's just like, you would think in the year of, I guess, 2024, when this came out or whatever, but now in 2025, whatever, like, accessibility for people with disability is still a problem. Like, they were talking about how the train was so uncomfortable, and not everybody would, who you would think would give up a seat if seeing that someone is struggling, wouldn't give up a seat, or that the chairs themselves were uncomfortable and things like that. So there was some commentary there.
I feel like one of the big things as well is that, and it does tie into disability, is that because Moo is three-legged in their natural form, they talk about how turning themselves into a human shape is basically like amputating themselves every day, basically, that they go out, and that is debilitating. And so it I don't even know where to go with this. It's just a lot.
Yeah. I feel like if you want me to like help out a little bit of what I'm thinking, and maybe we can just go off that. Like, I feel like it relates specifically to how maybe what I understand of the experience of people with disabilities, because of the fact that everything is created to be accessible by people who are able-bodied, right? It's like if you take like, I'm thinking about like scissors as an example, are typically made for people who are right-handed. So people who are left-handed have to be able to use right-handed objects because they're not readily accessible for people who are different, who are like ambidextrous, right? So it's like people who are disabled in whatever factor they are, they're still being forced to move through spaces that are not made for their bodies. So we see that directly through how Moo moves through the world.
Yeah. And I think another part that it also goes into is how invisible disabilities are a whole other minefield, basically, because a lot of they go, and I remember it vividly, they go into this whole thing thinking about public transport and how they wish they could be able to take a seat, and there would always be a seat available for them to sit down, but usually it's for the elderly, and how they're basically like, well, I know what you're thinking, why don't I just turn myself into an old person? But that also comes with its own things, because how older people are treated is not also always great and amazing. And then people are also conditioned to be like, no, disabled seats are for the visibly disabled, without taking into consideration that there are people that might look perfectly able-bodied, but they have invisible disabilities that make it like, no, they need to take a seat. They're not okay. But then you're likely to face scorn if you do that while not presenting the way people expect you to present.
Right.
You have a need.
Right. And also, I think like, I don't think that this is so much of a reach, but it's like we have Moo who is observing that there are people in seats who should be giving them a seat because of what they're going through. But that same thing could also be reversed, where it's like Moo saying, why aren't these people giving me a seat? But that person could also have an invisible disability. That could be the reason why they're not. And it's like, unfortunately, it should not be the what's it called? I guess the responsibility of the person who has the disability to have to explain themselves every time that they need something. It should just be like, we have enough accessibility, or if someone says something like, hey, can I have this? Like that should be enough. But it's not. And then it goes into also, I think of that same scene and of that aspect, like relates to when they got jumped. Was it by those young people or teenagers? Like, I don't remember what body form Mumu was in, but that they were by themselves, I think in a park or something at night.
Something like that. Yeah, something more nature vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. And a group of people just came over and started like beating them up just because. So it just goes, it cycles back into that, like, people just being unfair and society just being unfair when you could just be minding your own business, or like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I feel like a big thing about the whole novel as a whole is like being the other and how people react to you once it's revealed that
Mm-hmm.
you are other, that you are not the same as everyone else. And the challenges that come along with that, and therefore why arguably people try so hard then to conform, to avoid
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing, because there's real consequences to not performing adequately in the eyes
Mm-hmm.
of society.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in this case, Mumu was minding their own business, so they weren't like actively trying to perform anything to get anywhere or do anything. They were just existing, but the act of existence is still a performance.
Yeah.
And so that drew attention, until we found out that their blood is acid and that they might have melted their faces off. So like, cool.
But I think, okay, in that scene where it's actually revealed that their blood is acid, that is more targeted. That whole thing is more targeted because originally the person they're meeting for that encounter, they reveal, they're like, yep, I'm an alien and I look like this and like that and like that. And like in the chat originally, the other person was just like very curious and kept asking questions and seemingly being very chill about the
Mhm.
whole thing. But then the way I took it is that basically through that online exchange, that person was like, this person's weird as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get my little crew and we're gonna fuck up this person for being so fucking weird, basically. And so that's how they end up in that situation, but then they all get melted. Hooray!
Yay. Yay. Yeah, it was definitely like this, an example of Mumu like not conforming by being very open and honest about like, this is what I am. They might not believe me, or
Yeah.
maybe they're going to be into it. I don't know, but like, hey, this is who I actually am. And they were like, nah, son, we're not doing this. So yeah, that was really important. And then at the end, I haven't even started unpacking this in my brain. So we need to talk about this, I think. At the end, Mumu becomes suspicious of one person that they end up matching with through one of these dating apps, because their rule of thumb is never eat too close to home.
Yeah.
They gotta put a little bit distance, even if it's like uncomfortable, whatever. We don't need the cops coming up by my house and accidentally coming upon my alien spaceship. So we go far. But this person matched really close to them and also like fit everything that they wanted and were looking for. So they took a risk and then ultimately ended up shouldn't have taken that risk because it was another alien that was ready to be like, hi, lunch, hi. So yeah, what did you get out of that?
So for me, it was all very tragic and circular, basically. Because in their head they had created this idea, which they run in more detail once they realize that the other person is actually an alien, like them, that it's like, oh, we're gonna have this wonderful life and we can have all these children and then actually we'll make humans our slaves, basically. And they're so excited and so, you know, ready and happy to have someone else like them. but it's then that crushing realization, like, just because you're the same species doesn't mean that other person is obligated to give a shit about you. Like, you've been craving this companionship, and like this perfect opportunity comes, but actually that other alien has their own agency, has their own desires, and they do not align with yours. They're like, actually, you're as good at lunch as another human, so chomp chomp, basically. And so that, I think that's ultimately part of what the novel is exploring. Like, ultimately, like, people don't owe you companionship, I would argue, specifically. Like, they don't owe you desiring the same things that you desire and want. Like, it's not an inherently, because I don't think that's what the novel's going for. Like, it's not inherently negative to want certain things. You can want them, you just cannot demand or expect that other people will want exactly what you want.
Because I think a lot of the wishes that we were getting from Mumu, I think it was before because they didn't know that that person was an alien until they revealed themselves at the place where they were doing the stuff that they were doing. But they were imagining that to themselves, like, what if I found someone? What if, right? And they were like creating this perfect life for themselves inside of their head that was the best out of what they currently have. But like you said, like, just because someone else is also maybe in a similar position, they are also, like you said, they have agency, but that alien is also an other. Like, it didn't seem, I think, if what I understood, it wasn't the same kind of alien. It wasn't another alien from Mumu's species. It was like a different kind of alien. So that alien is experiencing their own sense of otherness throughout this.
Know. I think I did read it as it was their same species.
Was it?
I know I remember Mumu at least being like, oh, they're much bigger than me and I can't take them, basically.
Yeah.
But
I feel like their description was different.
I listened to it in audio, so like I can't.
Okay. Yeah, I think, hold on.
Again, that's how I read it. I'm not saying I have to be right.
I will double check, because I feel like, okay, this is the final illustration. Oh wait, is that Mumu still? I don't think that's Mumu, because the final illustration is very different. It's like this.
Huh. Interesting.
I don't know. For some reason in my head, I read it as it was a different kind of alien. But someone please correct me if I'm wrong. Hold on. I'm going to look for the spot right now, because it's like really... Okay, here it is. His colossal mouth, layered like an onion, creaks as it rotates open. He bites down on the sink. I narrowly escape. His tens of eyes slowly blink vertically and in unison fixate on me. He's 3 times my size and nimble. He has 9 arms and legs. Axe-like toenail, saw-like fingernail. Yeah, so like all of the features that Mumu had described to us about themselves, this is like very different, because Mumu had 2 eyes, claws.
They had the nail, the 3 legs.
The nail, the 3 legs. Yep.
I can't remember the arms.
The arms, they had 3 legs and 1 appendage that they said would also technically be a leg with like a hook nail. This one has an axe nail and saw fingernails, 9 eyes. And then Mumu's 2 eyes would like move up and down depending on what they're doing. This person has like vertical eyes. Yeah, so I read it as a different alien.
Okay.
Yeah. So that alien, from what I thought about it, is like, just because they're also like in a similar, potentially in a similar position. We don't really know if they're the only one or what their situation is, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily had the same wants We know that they have the same need, which is to
Yeah.
eat and
Yeah.
sustenance and to survive, but we don't know that they had necessarily the same wants that Mumu had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's cool. At the final page, it has this little illustration. It's cool. I like it. Yeah. I love it.
Oh, but you said need, and it makes me think even more about like needs versus wants and all this stuff. And like by the end of the novel, I was actually like, Mumu's actually very greedy. Because I feel like the volumes of food they go for never feel like, oh, this is the volume I need in order to survive. It feels very, I want to eat as much as possible, basically.
Yes.
And it's not enough, like it's not always enough. Even if I have my fridge fully stocked, I need some fresh meat, which is a want versus a necessity. Because it's like you have resources, you're always packing up a bunch of food. But you're like, I need some fresh head. Basically. And so it had me thinking about that as well, because in several different ways, I feel like there's moments where Mumu presents themselves as like very entitled, like, how dare you not do this thing for me? How dare you behave in this way? How dare you not make things easier for me? And I just found it interesting. I found it interesting how, obviously, morally speaking, of course, as a human, Mumu's not good because they're just killing people and they don't give a shit. But beyond that, there's other things as well that make them more complex and interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if I can add anything to that.
Those are just some of my ruminations, frankly. When I reread it, I was like, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any other thoughts about it.
Because the other thing I wanted to think about connected to that as well, I was like, Mumu's a sex addict. I'm like, and this is not something we've talked about.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Mumu is a sex addict because the amount of sex they have,
a lot,
astronomical, frankly. And like, I'm not saying you shouldn't be pro masturbating, but they're like, you should masturbate. Anyone who masturbates, obviously you're miserable. I'm pretty sure there was a line that was basically like, you know why you're so miserable? Because you don't masturbate.
Yes, like, they were definitely an addict. That was their main form of communication, honestly. Like, yeah, they talk to people and yeah, they got the hookup, but when they meet face to face, they're not talking. They're not getting to know each other. What's your actual name outside of like Heavy Hitter Bottom or something like that, whatever their screen name was? It doesn't matter. They're having sex. And it's like that. I feel like that's a really important part of their love language, because that's how we saw them fall in love with the person that they were considering to be like their 11th or 12th partner or whatever the case was. So it's like, in some ways it was interesting because it's like sex can be a love language, and like there's nothing wrong with wanting to have lots of sex, but also because that is the limitation to how they deemed someone valuable to them. Like they never got to really move deeper into some thoughts that they were having, which was like, oh, maybe humans are actually like kind of interesting and I can keep them around a little longer. But like working through that thought and taking it to the next level of having a conversation with somebody would be wanting to get to know them. And that moves beyond, again, like this being a transactional thing. So yeah, Mumu's definitely a sex addict.
I just like, I'm like, and the record needs to show this because it's true.
Yeah. They're just having a ball. Well,
No.
it's like good for you. So happy that you're having the time of your life. Yeah. But like you said, it's like they could have also just like potentially sustained off of they had like a month's worth of food backed up in their house. So at a point they didn't need to go out every day or as frequently as they did. They went out because they wanted to.
Yeah.
And even though when they did get hurt, when they were jumped by that person who was being like, I guess, all the phobic, because
Yeah.
whether they actually believed that Mumu actually was an alien saying I'm an alien is not the point. It's the point
Yeah.
that they were like, this person is weird, and I'm gonna like make them conform to what I think needs to happen to them. So when they experienced that, they end up having to go through those rations anyway. But the point still remains that like they were going out so frequently because they wanted to, not because they necessarily needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything else that we should talk about? Anything we haven't covered?
No, I feel like we mentioned some of it with our love of the audiobook itself.
Yeah.
Because I know you and I were talking about translation and the act of translation and what
Mm-hmm.
that means
Mm-hmm.
for a novel, which I think is very significant in this one specifically. Like in general, I definitely stand in the party of people that's like, we need to be more clear and like I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but like focus on the fact that like translators are not invisible
Mm-hmm.
inherently. And I would argue especially in a work of fiction where the author is making stylistic choices
Mm-hmm.
and all these kinds of things, the translator is not invisible because they have to make a lot of decisions. Like most novels, I would argue, are not translated literally
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, in order to successfully convey the message that the original author was trying to say, you have to translate it into the language, but it's the figurative language that the speakers of the other language understand.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's phrases, turns of phrase, all of these things that countries and languages have that are not um there are no clear translations because it's like no, what this phrase expresses in this other language might not even be something that people have tried to express in that
Mm-hmm.
way in this other language. And so I loved getting that. My point here being like, I love that whole section at the end of the novel that is like the translator's notes
Mm-hmm.
because I want more of that transparency because they talk through like what the challenges were in translating this work specifically because the author Dolki Min also made very obvious choices about how to write their novel, which in their case, because it's in Korean, they could do certain things with um the alphabet and the accents, I think. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know to convey what ultimately I feel is better conveyed in the audiobook of
Yeah.
this novel versus the physical format of it because you could extend vowels or like in some of the sections that I know they showed, like they put it all together to kind of imply that it's all said in a row, like the part of like, I'm so sorry, I love you, I'm not gonna eat you, blah blah blah. Like I feel like you can do that, but it's not, I don't think it as strongly conveys what the original novel was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
the audiobook does it in a better way,
Yeah.
I guess is
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say.
Tonality really matters. And I don't know necessarily, I don't think, but I could be wrong, that Korean as a language is as tonal as like Mandarin or other languages are. But it definitely plays a strong role in how the narrator chose to interpret what was said. Because it's like we have the translator who is interpreting from one language to another, but then we also have the narrator who is interpreting or invoking emotion into what is being read regardless. So there's like multiple layers to that. So maybe just do both. Read it twice. Listen to it and then read it physically.
Yeah, I think my ultimate message here is like translation is cool.
Yeah. So good. Okay. Yay. I think that's all I have to say. I loved it. It was so good. So good. Okay. So yeah, I guess that's it, right? Do you have anything else you want to add? Okay.
No.
Cool beans. So that was our review for Walking Practice. If you'd like to join us to talk about the February book club pick, which again is Death of the Author, the link to the Discord is linked below, as well as the other hosts' channels. So definitely follow us on all our social media so you can get notifications in case you're not in Discord, so that you can join us to talk about any of the sci-fi books. And we will be back in a couple of weeks with more good stuff. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.
Bye.